Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the difference between spring wheat and winter wheat. And I also want to answer another question that I have gotten a few times lately and just put it in one video. So we're just going to be talking about wheat berries today, but not going really in depth. I just want to cover a couple of topics that I have been getting questions about. So the first question that I want to talk about is, what is the difference between winter wheat and spring wheat? When you first start getting into grinding your own wheat berries, it can be so confusing. There are so many varieties and sub-varieties and categories and all these things, and it can be overwhelming when you first start. And so I want to kind of just let you know exactly what you're dealing with. There are two main categories of wheat berries, hard and soft. The hard is used for bread, like yeasted breads or sourdough breads, and the soft is used for quick breads like biscuits, banana breads, and things like that. So putting those aside for just a minute, there is also spring wheat and winter wheat. Really, the main difference is just when they're planted. So it's their growing season. Winter wheat, as the name implies, grows, it actually lays dormant over the winter, and then it comes out in the spring, and then you harvest it in late spring, early summer. Now, the type of wheat that we grow is a winter wheat, and we plant it in October, and we harvest it in June. Spring wheat, as the name implies, is planted in the spring, and it grows throughout the summer and fall, and then late fall you harvest the wheat berries. Now, there are some that have the opinion that winter wheat is more nutritious because it lays dormant all winter, and there's a thought that it collects more vitamins and minerals and can actually have more health benefits. I don't know that for a fact, and through my research I haven't been able to definitively say yes, that's true, but I will say that we choose to grow it that way because it works for the flow of our homestead to plant when everything's done with the garden and let it grow and not harvest it until June, which is the time when we're not really harvesting a lot from our summer garden to have to process, and it just works out good for us. That's the only reason that we chose to do winter wheat. But I have used both spring wheat and winter wheat, and the differences are negligible. I do not look at that as a deciding factor when I buy wheat. And so I would say, especially when you're first starting out, don't really pay a lot of attention to spring or winter wheat. They're both going to work. They're both going to create delicious, great products. And I would just look more on the hard and the soft. And so now we're going to get into that. I had someone, actually a few people, which wheat berry should I start out with? I'm brand new and I want to, be successful with this. What do you suggest? I 100%, and I've said this in other videos, so I'm going to sound like a broken record today, buy you a big bucket of hard white wheat for everything, for biscuits, for cookies, for bread, for everything, because hard white wheat is so versatile. It is very neutral flavored. It's mild. It is the lightest flour when it is freshly milled, so you do have better results when you make your bread with it. And so I always say start with hard white wheat. Get a 42-pound bucket. I'll link down below where I get mine, and just use that. When you're finished using that 42 pounds of hard white wheat, you're going to be well versed in it. You're going to understand how freshly milled flour works by that time, and you're going to be ready to venture out into some other categories. And then at that time, you can start getting small portions of different types of wheat berries and start playing with them, because each one has its own little quirks, I should say, that you have to adjust things to fit your recipes. But if you use a complete bucket of hard white wheat and you just work through all of the process of learning it, By the time you're finished, you're going to be a pro at using freshly milled flour, and you can move on to hard red wheat, some of your ancient wheats, or heritage grains as well. So I 100% go with hard white wheat. I think that it is the most versatile of the wheat berries in the kitchen, especially for a beginner, and would say just go for that. Now you may say, I don't want to buy 42 pounds. I won't get through it. It'll go bad. They last for years and years, so you will have no problem getting through it as long as they're stored correctly, which means in a cool, dry environment. And they have an oxygen absorber in them, which they will come with. I also put a couple of bay leaves in mine just to make sure there's no chance of critters getting in there, and they do great. So keep them in your bucket and tight fitting lid. You'll be good to go. One more question that I have been getting lately, it seems like, is what grain meal do you recommend? And since I have tried most different types of grain meals, I can stand here today and say that I still recommend the same grain meal I have always recommended since I started this channel, and that is the Nutri-Mill Classic Grain Meal. For beginners and pros alike, it can't be beat. It makes a beautiful fine flour. Even if you turn the knob all the way, you would still be able, like if you accidentally turned it over, your kid maybe turned it over, you're still going to be able to use that flour. It's still going to be fine enough that you can use that flour. It's kind of one of those meals that is just pour it in, turn it on, you got your flour in the bowl. It's so hard to mess up with it. With these stone meals, there's kind of a learning curve with them, and though they make a beautiful flour and they're beautiful and they work great, when you're first starting out, and even now, I go to my classic grain meal most of the time. I just love that grain meal. It's also the least expensive grain meal that you can get that is a high-powered electric grain mill. So to me, it wins bar none over all of the grain meals. I am a 100% Nutri-Mill Classic grain meal. It gets used constantly in my kitchen, and I just love it. It's a big machine, and it takes up space on your counter, but it just works, and I love it. And so I would highly recommend it. They are the least expensive. I have a coupon code that gets you an extra $20 off as well that you can use anytime you want, and you can take that $20 off and get a really good deal on that grain meal. I feel like that there's so many choices to make when you decide to start milling your own wheat berries. There's just, which grain meal to get, which grain to get, how do I store the grain? There's so much to consider, but breaking it down to the bare bones, get some hard white wheat, and of course I recommend getting organic hard white wheat, and get a Nutri-Mill Classic grain meal. You will be set up for success. I am going to link a couple more videos that I made about wheat berries and grinding your own wheat in the description box below if you want to continue, or I'll just link the playlist, and that way you can, if I didn't answer your question today, you can look through those and see. I went in depth about this topic. I'm very passionate about it, and I think that it's one of those topics that it's for your health. You do make an investment buying a grain meal, but it is so worth it. You don't have to have a stand mixer to make bread. You don't have to have any fancy equipment, but you do need a grain mill, because if you start using freshly milled flour for all of your recipes, you want something that can make a lot of flour at one time and keep it at a low enough temperature that it's not, destroying those wonderful vitamins and minerals that are in there. And so the Classic fits the bill, and I just love it. So all right, well, I hope that this answered a few questions that I've been getting lately. And if you have any questions about freshly milled flour that I haven't answered or that you can't find in the playlist, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions, because it is a topic that I love digging into and sharing with you all. So, all right, well, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you found it educational, insightful, and it helped you in your decision making when it comes to freshly milled flour. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're brand new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. We sure would like to have you here. Head over to our blog, therosehomestead.com, for tons of printable recipes. And that's all I have. We'll see you on the next video.